Singapore. As a result, we had to take another round of votes for a deputy chair. So the last 3 years, you can see our, you can't read, but you can see our 3 subcommittee members who have been asked to, or we have been told to say goodbye to by them. Not but we have got the subcommittee inductions. We got 2 new subcommittee members who have joined us. One of them is virtual and one of them is present amongst us. So we got subcommittee members who come in 6 months, they work into the committee, and then they step up to the main committee depending on activity they have. So without much ado, I'll move to the events and we'll turn around to see what events we have. Otherwise we have to look at the presentation. So the events. Chris is our events lead. I'll leave it to Chris to talk about events.
I want to see the welfare first, which is hard.
Yes. Anuj.
Thank you, good evening everyone. So this is about the shoebox story. So all is that we need to support our seafarers, and we started this last year. It's been done other places around the world. So all your companies where you represent where you work, you have corporate social responsibility, right? CSR, ESG, name it any way you like it. This is an initiative to do a company event for the seafarers, either for your company or for the community or in the ports where you operate. And we have, last year was a very successful year for us. You have some nice letters. We did about 300 plus boxes last year. This year we want to beat that. It costs us about 200 dirhams per box to get it ready and loaded. We actually welcome companies to sponsor this because this is your event, it's your seafarers, it's your corporate CSR as well. And for 10,000 dirhams, 50 boxes, you can sponsor, wrap them up. We get the boxes ready for you as in the shelves, and then you can have a company event and fill that up. And we help them distribute. We have good tie-ups with gold companies, with suppliers. And this spreads all the way from Christmas into Ramadan. And I think the next slide highlights the Ramadan story, right? Sorry. Not working too well. Is it a little better? Oh, sorry. My apologies. So this is the other one. And we have a lot of photographs. If you go to the previous one, you'll see some photographs on this. But what's nice about it is it was welcomed by the seafarers. They really liked that all of you cared for them. You know, we enjoy Christmas with our families, with our friends, and they are on board. So if you can share a little bit of joy with them, that's something amazing. And of course, it helps you as a company with your CSR, ESG program as well. The next one.
Yeah. So continues with Ramadan as well. So there is clear support. So we help seafarers get through jobs at sea, not just young seafarers. Montfort is in charge of the portfolio of seafarer welfare. So not only do we actually commit to getting freshers in, but we also help out job seekers. There's a careers tab on our website, and we do help out people. Zarir has been very instrumental in getting this young engineer a job on one of his vessels on the fleet. So we don't shout about it a lot because it's all about getting the work done, and we talk about it in our events during the AGM and during the gala at the best. Otherwise, under the radar, we carry on doing what we do. We also help out stranded seafarers who require assistance, and they reach out, or we at every committee meeting ask a question if anybody knows anybody who has been in need of assistance. So we got some testimonials. The printouts are here. We won't run through. We got handwritten testimonials of people who we have assisted and aided in their adventure. There's one where it has gone all the way to IMO, where a vessel has been designated as an abandoned vessel, and I have personally taken interest because it was an ex-Antigua and Barbuda flag vessel, where we have successfully got the crew repatriated and paid for. But much to our disappointment, there has been a fresh set of crew who have joined an unregistered and uninsured vessel, which is unfortunately the tragedy of our industry. But we will continue to support it diligently. Safety ambassadors at sea. I think we leave. Farad, you have.
Thank you and good evening. The safety ambassadors at sea, two exceptional students from the Sharjah Maritime Academy. As you can see over here in the photographs, these dedicated young scholars have been embraced with the lifelong role of safety at sea, or safety ambassadors at sea, symbolizing their commitment and promoting safety and excellence. These awards were the
Chris.
Okay, so look at the events we've done over the past year. We started with the Christmas event in December last year, which was a very good success, 120 people plus. This year we're not going to run the Christmas event because there's too many competing other events. So we decided we would defer because we didn't want to fill up the calendar in mid-months. We had, following the Christmas event, we had the cricket tournament, which has been a great success. And it's something we'll be asking. Coming. So the cricket event, we know that this can be sort of exclusive for the people that play cricket. So we're going to open this up in any other business, because we think we should make this into more of a family event and have some side things, maybe some beanbag throwing, bring the kids along, do something other than just cricket. Because even though I'm English, it's boring, isn't it? Too many Indians going to disagree with that. We then had the technical conference, and again this is something like this evening. There will be a panel event after. For 2026 we're going to be having more educational events. We'll be asking sponsors to come along, we'll be doing related topics to the industry. And again, these events are something that the Nautical Institute is renowned for, and it's basically bringing out the expertise within the community to develop.
Which is not microphones. We're obviously not very good at that. We then have the annual ball. Again, last year that was in May. This year we're going to do it slightly earlier. We're looking at the 11th of April, and there's a specific reason for the 11th of April. We have Ramadan this year, which runs from mid-February to mid-March. We then have the Eid holidays, which leads into the school holidays, which don't finish until the end of March. So we then looked at the dates. For those of you that were in attendance this year, the venue of the So Uptown in DMCC was a fantastic event. I think we had close to 500. And we want to do the same again plus. So we're going to go back to the same venue. We're going to do that on the 11th of April. We will be putting a flyer out in the near future. Again, there's the sponsors are there from previously. And we'd like those of you that work for the nice big companies to step up and out-sponsor the other sponsors. All for good events. And again, the five-a-side football event, the same as the cricket. We're going to try and make this into more of a family event, having some side shows. We'd like participation from members to give some suggestions. What would you like on the side of these big events? What would make you bring your families along and participate a bit more into the events? I'll hand back to the chairman.
That's a thank you. That's our AGM concluded. We have the numbers. Where are the numbers? Are we not going to speak about the numbers?
Okay. So unfortunately the Treasurer is not here tonight, but I know the numbers off by heart anyway. In the past 12 months we raised 407,000 dirhams as an institute. Unfortunately we spent 521, so therefore we have approximately 120,000 deficit. The Nautical Institute UAE branch still has approximately 120,000 dirhams in the bank account. We would like to do various events to raise that, because the money is spent on seafarer welfare, it's spent on helping the industry, it's spent supporting the industry. So we do need to raise more money this year. We would like to get back to over 200,000 in the bank balance, so that money can be spent when needed on things that are needed by the seafaring community. So again, the events that we're going to have over the coming 12 months, we appreciate the support from everyone. This evening's event sponsored by our partners, which you'll get shortly, and we will have the panel discussion to go through that. We would welcome any other ideas that come forward to increase the finances of the Institute so that we can help the general good.
Yeah, I think we have stood by what the charity is all about, although we are a registered members organization, but in the heart of it, we give back to the industry what we receive, and as a testimonial to that, we have spent 100,000, 120,000 more this year than we usually do. We have had feedbacks on costings of our events, etc. So we made those considerations. But point being that we give back not only in terms of rebate, but also in terms of scholarships, in terms of safety ambassadors. We have already appointed 4 safety ambassadors for the Nautical Institute who are Emiratis, and we want to do more of that. And that money is going back to the community, to the young Emiratis, to instill a safety culture in them. But that said, that's our AGM. Thank you very much.
And in addition to money, I'd like to point out that both the full committee and the subcommittee, they do not get paid anything. They give their time for free to support the community.
And that was very important to say. And we've got a gender diverse committee. I know we are men here, but I'm just saying that we do have a conscious
Recording in
effort.
progress.
Thankfully, it was after what I just said. But point being that we want to be as diverse as a community and as what the Nautical Institute these days stands for, to encourage women in our community, which we've unfortunately not done for decades and centuries before. And we think the shortage of seafarers is going to be fulfilled by the other gender, the fairer gender amongst us, and we want to be seeing that. That's why when we choose the safety ambassadors, we make sure that we ask for a male and a female participant to these nautical institutions, whom we then choose to put up. But without taking much time, we don't want to be making this much of. Anybody has any objections? If you are a member, you speak now or hold your silence forever. Peter, do you have anything to say? Negative? Nothing. Okay. But thank you very much. If there's nothing, we will then move to the next agenda item, which is a panel discussion that we have from Vessel Protect, our lovely sponsors for this evening. Please put a round of applause for applause for them. Thank you very much. James, Ken and Munro, please join us for the committee panel discussion. Thank you very much. The committee, please give them a, yeah, thank you. Chris, you're a panelist, so you can stand. Sorry, you can stay. But thank you very much, Anuj, Capt, Farad, Prabjot, Deepak. I'm going to stay.
Thank you. He's giving us something. This is the questions. Questions. Other questions.
We have online. Do we have somebody online joining us? All right, here's our second episode. Please come closer. You can press on the mic and. Okay, we got a panel discussion of war risk and geopolitical tides in the maritime trade. We've got Chris Peters on my right. We've got James Ken and Munro here, who we are looking to get a lot of insights from. I will leave them to self-introduce and answer a very important question on how does the current geopolitical environment affect you positively or negatively. Being underwriters, I'm not assuming you're saying positive, but I'll leave it to your diplomatic skills, James. But over to Peter, and please introduce yourself and answer the question as to how, sorry, Chris. Chris, how would you think the current geopolitical and the tides of maritime introduce, and then answer the question. Introduce yourself.
Okay, for those that don't know me, my name's Chris Peters, de facto ship owner. Been in the UAE since 2009. Previously a shipping banker for 20 years prior to that. Now working with basically buying ships and putting insurance on those ships and trading them in the region where the war risks are becoming quite challenging and have been challenging for the last couple of years. So these guys will give their own perspective from the insurance and underwriting side, and I'll give the owner's perspective.
Thank you, Chris. Good evening. My name is James Capt. I'm an underwriter at Vessel Protect, the war risk underwriter in London. We're also in Lloyd's of London. We have a global portfolio. We have a significant number of clients in the Persian Gulf region, but we insure ships all around the world. My history in the insurance business, I suppose, is my 25th year. I've worked in the P&I market for around 18 years. I switched over to the broking side to learn other skills of marine insurance world, which I did for 5 or so years, and then I joined Vessel Protect June 2024, specialising in the war sector, which is marine but political violence and terrorism area, very much looking at geopolitics in the market. And thank you very much to Captain Irani, Nautical Institute, for inviting us and allowing us to speak here. It's very much appreciated.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Munro, and I'm the Director of Marine Operations at Vessel Protect. I have slightly less pedigree in the insurance industry than the other two gentlemen to my right, but I joined Vessel Protect in April 2023, essentially heading up their intelligence and risk modelling there, and that speaks to my background. Prior to that, I ran a security company called Drive Global, operating in the maritime space. Did that for 7 years, and prior to that, I had a background in military intelligence for 10 years. Preceding that, sort of working all over the world, dealing with kind of issues that are intrinsic to the markets we find ourselves in, but with the shipping industry, just applying that in a different context. But yeah, so that's me. And again, I just want to echo what James said, and thanks very much to the Nautical Institute and of course to Captain Irani for inviting us to speak with you. It was great to kind of sit in on your AGM there and hear about all the wonderful work that you guys are doing. So congratulations on that, and yeah, long may that prosper.
A pleasure. We've got somebody else online who would like to introduce himself, if he comes. All right. We got somebody from EOS who's supposed to be one of the panelists online, but when he comes, we'll have him on. But without much ado, we got a Slido barcode, which the way this evening's panel discussion is going to proceed is we're not going to have anybody running around with mics in the audience. You can scan the barcode, put up your questions, and if I turn around, I will read it and ask that question. But that said, I've got a few premeditated questions already in from those who have registered and have been wanting answers to it. So let's jump right in. Should we review the Walrus Declaration discussion by the clubs and JCC due to changing geopolitical equations and influences from certain powerhouses?
Big question to start with.
Kick it off.
So, is that my fault? So I think in terms of, not just speak to kind of the clauses, etc., but to kind of go broader than that, I think it's incumbent upon the industry to, certainly the industry that reflects risk, to do just that and reflect the risk as it's seen at the time. One of the things that we feel quite passionate about is that the mechanisms that are put in place, things like the JWC, have got to take action when threat evolves, And if you look at things like the JWLAs, we're asking every day how reflective of the risk is the current JWLA laid out. I'm not sure, speaking quite candidly, how much it does. It's very quick to implement, but not very quick to remove. Acted in, with remarkable haste when the threat developed off Mozambique, and of course it extended the HRA in the Red Sea. But I'm just not sure in sort of today's contemporary threat environment just how much it's giving to seafarers, particularly if we look at how many incidents are happening beyond the eastern edge of this in the Red Sea. So I think it opens up a much broader question of is the industry itself keeping pace? Are we responding to the threats as we see them? And I don't think that we necessarily are.
How frequently do they change the bar for the premiums, recalibrate them for Red Sea transits, daily, weekly, voyage by voyage? What are the levels of volatility, do you think, James?
It's a great question, and actually we are very alert to what's going on in the market, particularly in London. We will react to events. We're trying to watch what's kind of going on in the world, and it's as common as daily. We will be looking at rates. With Invest Protect, the team meets twice a week, beginning and end, to kind of analyse what's been going on, where are we going, what losses have happened in the market. Occasionally we have our own, but we're watching others as well and developing threats. So the answer is very regularly.
So coming to Chris, real world consequences for the owners and charterers for these fluctuations, because obviously charter parties, long-term charter parties, etc. And then you have this little uncomfortable feeling of a war risk transit cover through the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb and Straits of Hormuz. There's all sorts of reshuffling and relationships that are put to test. What do you think as a ship owner or somebody who would hire a ship on a long-term basis on a bareboat or whatever, are the consequences of these volatilities?
Challenging. Challenging questions. Okay, let's maybe take a step back 15 years. If we go back to late 2000s into 2009, 10, 11, we had Somali piracy. Same region as a lot of the risks we're discussing here. What happened there was the insurance industry sort of supported the industry, because the oil majors back then, and I'm predominantly tankers, the oil majors wouldn't allow armed guards on ships. And it went from having ships that were getting a reduction in war risk premium and potential cheaper insurance to ships not being insured without armed guards. So I think, and again, the JWC, they expanded the additional war risk to the entire Indian Ocean by the end of 2011. It gradually moved out 600 miles, 1,200 miles and became the whole of the Indian Ocean within 2 years. So I think the insurance industry actually can support and does support the industry by getting the JWC moving and making decisions that ship owners are quite slow to look at and make the ship owner think. So I think with the Red Sea, the challenge there is it's different to Somali piracy. Somali piracy you could see coming. A missile coming from the Houthis you can't. And having a safe room and telecommunications really isn't going to help if you're going to be hit by a missile. So I think there needs to be other protections that ship owners either look at. I mean, from our side, we have source crude for one of the refineries in Port Sudan and a refinery in Fujairah. So what do? Shut your business down or take risk mitigation and take the cargo? You can't just close your business. You have to look at the risks. And you put protections in place. You look at where you're going. You clearly don't have any link to America. If you're in this region, you don't have a link to the Americans, the Brits, certainly the Israelis, and you put the correct insurance in place and you discuss how you're going to transit those areas. And you put the appropriate insurance in place, which we discuss with the underwriters on what is appropriate and what measures you're taking.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that's clear. We can't use two mics. So, beyond financial losses, how seriously do you think insurers weigh the reputational damage? Is there a cover for reputational damage? Do they protect? Do they give you media cover, or is it down to the owners to fend for themselves and kind of put up with it? Because your company gets named everywhere for the right or wrong reasons. Like they say in marketing, there's nothing like bad marketing. You still get named, you still get famous, and people still get to know you. But point is, does that weigh on your reputation and your trading ability in a serious consequence as an aftermath?
Haven't had an incident that's going to cause that publicity, so it's difficult to say. But I think, owners have been hit. Maybe you're better to explain. You've insured some of those that have been hit in the Red Sea recently, and I don't know how many people can remember the names of the companies. You can remember the names of the ships. Who remembers the names of the companies of all the ships that have been hit in the last 12 months?
I think the key there really, and of course I would say this as an underwriter or underwriter from London, is to have reputable war insurance with a good provider who themselves has good intelligence connections. They know what's going on in the market, and is here to pay claims. And the frequency is relatively low, but the severity when it happens is extremely high. We're talking not only about physical damage to vessel, cargo, but loss of life, injuries. The crew, if not physically injured, will potentially be traumatized. They will be off of work for a significant period of time. They will need to be repatriated back home, and all these considerations are factored in. The crew aspect of it, we've seen a couple of losses, one this year and 1 year before last, where there was sadly there was no war risk insurance in place, and a recent one which happened in July is very severe. There were some fatalities. We had some crew taken by the Houthi back to Yemen, and this is a very difficult matter, and it's even more difficult if there's no insurance.
Wonderful. We got Munro sitting down quietly, but given the Red Sea transit or the Persian Gulf transit, what are the main factors that drive the premiums and the pricing? my stomach. I can tell you, it wasn't my stomach. It was
I'll tell you what, the fish is really good.
Okay, what does drive the premiums on a typical container ship or a laden VLCC, or maybe is it ports, which port your vessels call in this region? What is it that triggers?
And that was the drum and bass remix that we had before that. So yeah, look, it's, you know, when you're looking to quantify risk or when you're looking to kind of assess risk, you're taking into consideration a number of factors. And if we're looking at, you know, I think the question was in relation to the Persian Gulf, but if we kind of extrapolate it out, something, you know, maybe slightly more dynamic at the moment, looking at Red Sea, of course, you look at what the kind of core nexus is that sits at the heart of the risk. And in terms of this, we're looking to kind of assess, yes, this is a geopolitical context. So what is the risk of the vessel? What are the connections of the vessel? You know, what is the ownership structure of the vessel? You know, where is the vessel called over time? All of those things, trading history, trading pattern, involved in interested parties, these things all sit at the heart of the kind of risk assessment for all trading in this region, particularly Red Sea, but you know, I think certainly that extends through to the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman as well.
So while the mic is with you and you're next to me, it seems to work. How can a particular owner who's paying premium mitigate his risk and as a result lower his premium?
Okay, so that's two very different questions. I think the answer to that question changed fundamentally when it came to the second part of it about lowering premiums. So that was quite cheeky. But let's just deal with the mitigation first. Okay. One of the things the industry is very good at, you know, in credits to sort of the Intertanko, BIMCO, etc., is publishing industry guidelines for vessels, masters and companies and how to deal with, you know, situations, both in the theoretical realm of mitigation and contingency planning, and of course to vessel masters for dealing with the threat as they find it on board vessels. You know, PMP5 and the BMP series has kind of, you know, satisfied that requirement for some time. Of course, you know, as I was talking, we this whole thing developed around the piracy nexus a number of years ago, and out of that was born the kind of armed guard piece. Armed guards is a very specific mitigation for a very specific threat, and we saw kind of application of that in the Red Sea in response to the Houthi threat, just in terms of giving an additional set of eyes on the bridge, early warning, and of course enhanced communication and perhaps kind of situation management if the situation required it. But yeah, I think there is a sort of comprehensive list of guidelines out there. In terms of their impact on premium, I think, you know, it is a kind of comprehensive underwriting model that assumes that the industry will be applying best practice, and of course that is warranted in almost all instances. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I would leave that in terms of mitigations.
I'm assuming, James, that oil majors, liner trades, bulk carriers, tramp owners, everyone who's carrying different values of commodities on board ships would have different premiums, because obviously the liabilities with the value of the cargo they're transiting with differs as a commodity value. But how does that impact the levels of premiums and the coverage flexibility? Do you give a better preference to somebody who's never had an attack or never had any kind of incident, yet carrying oil, let's say a BP or a Chevron? I know those oil majors avoid the region totally, but let's say, hypothetically speaking, a well-reputed ship owner carrying high commodity, would there be a preference on premiums given the track record?
I think the answer to that from us, for a vessel protector, really is flexibility. You know, we have owners who do occasional transits through a single area, and some who go to multiple different areas around the world, and we will flex depending upon the demands of the client. Obviously, the more business they place, then there is the potential for recognition of that. But the key thing we're looking at really is the underwriting of the risk. It's the very deep affiliation checks of respective managers, ownership structure of the vessel, and depending on different nationalities, essentially can lead to different type of risk. We're talking very much here in terms of the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and the Houthi, of course. But yeah, there is recognition, and ultimately loyalty is something that we very much recognise.
But you give, there's the premium and there's the second premium. There's the premium you charge, and then there's the rebate for no claims. So there's two completely different prices.
There is. I suppose just to expand on what Chris was saying, it's quite normal when we're looking at what you would recognise as AWRP, for there to be a no claims bonus in the rate. So the majority of the time transits will occur, and that's okay. But there is the potential for larger clients or clients who are doing regular calls or regular transits will also receive recognition.
And we've got our last panelist virtually present. He's putting his hand up, and Martin online. Martin, can you hear us? How are you going to speak to us is the question. Do you want to stick a mic there? Huh? Yeah, I think just see if he can speak to us.
He's on mute.
Testing comms.
Yes. Go on. Introduce us, please. We can hear you.
Okay. Evening. I'm currently, so apologies for going by virtual means. I understand it can be quite complicated. So I'm a massive advisory, DLS risk. We're a full-time risk advisory company with HQ in the UK, not in the UAE. Prior to me coming to here, I've been for 17 years. Like full spectrum of maritime operations, all maritime intelligence. My last role in the military was the lead analyst UK at the Maritime.
I'll have to stop you there, Martin. Martin, you're coming broken. Till we fix the void, you're coming with broken syllables. So we're not able to understand you. But we carry on with the questions which we had. And after agreeing to transit the Red Sea and charging additional costs, can an owner refuse to transit the area last minute after agreeing? What do you think, James? Will you refund the money? That's not me.
I'm going to pass this very quickly to Chris. I think
No,
who's
you.
the best. But a question for me. Yeah, I mean, look, the war risk market moves extremely quickly. Actually, typically we receive inquiries quite late in the day. We are often, we're supporting the owners and the commercial side of the business. So the flexibility is key. But I think, as I alluded to earlier, in terms of timeframes, we're often looking at maximum 48 hours ahead of time in terms of risk that's happening. So we tend to have a fairly good idea quite close to the time. But I think from an operational perspective, I'm going to
Okay, first of all, the war risk premium is the responsibility of the charterer. So if you have chartered your ship and the charterer wants to do it, then it's their responsibility to put that in place as part of the charter party. So if the charterer has all of that in place and you as the owner have agreed to it, then no, you cannot refuse. And again, the ships that we have now, we have quite simply, we've changed from the Filipino ratings to the Indian ratings, because Filipino crew have a pure right to refuse to go into the Red Sea at the moment. But the Indian crew, they're told in advance this could happen. They're paid their war risk bonus for doing that, and therefore they do not have a right to refuse. So no, once the owner has agreed to go, you have to go.
Well, poor seafarers. If there is somebody with weak nerves, he has to carry on with the voyage then. But that is what earns them that little extra. Yeah, they get paid extra. So that's the answer to somebody anonymous who asked the question. That's the only other question that is other than the Nautical Institute question that was asked. I know we are well ahead of our time, but do we have any comments while somebody else thinks of a question? I'll pass the mic around to the panelists if they want to add some more comments while Martin tries to come back online.
Any questions? I think the only other additional comments that I kind of would add, certainly kind of considering the company we have, looking at ship owners here, is that I think responsible transits is key. What we're seeing now was a huge impact on traffic volumes going through Red Sea particularly over the last sort of 24 months. And we're now seeing that change, that tide change slightly. We're seeing an uptick in vessel transits. And I think realistically, this is a story of kind of considering the welfare of mariners, considering obviously balancing these with the commercial liabilities, and obviously then leaning into your underwriters and making sure that they're kind of able to share a considerable body of information that sort of kind of supports commercial decision making, but also then relying on the kind of industry mechanisms that point you in the right direction of support and mitigation. I think that's where we find ourselves at this point. It would be a misconception, I think, for everyone to look at a threat landscape and think that it's fundamentally changed. We've been through some hard times in the 24 months, of course. Nobody more so has felt this other than the mariners themselves. And it looks like, touch wood, that we're on the downward side of that risk. But I, as an underwriter, express a kind of cautious tone at that. Everything, as we look out at the kind of global threat landscape, we all know that it can change on a dime. The parties that are involved are incentivized in numerous different directions. And just today we see kind of peace negotiations going on, and we hope that these yield something. But if they don't, the industry is of course poised to deal with that.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what weight do you put on the Houthis' promise that the attacks have now stopped?
Yeah, sure. So that question, if anyone didn't hear, was what weight do we put on? What weight do we put on the Houthi promise that attacks have now stopped? And what you're referring to, of course, is the Houthi statement released a few weeks ago that stated that as long as the peace treaty lasts in Gaza, there will be no more attacks. And I think your ask is what weight do we put on an organisation that clearly doesn't value the lives of innocent mariners. So from a purely cynical value, not very much. They are self-incentivized. What they've tried to do all along is tie their cause to that of a much wider, perceived noble cause. But in actual fact, I think you'll find that it's kind of predominantly a self-interested act for the Houthis to kind of extract or piggyback in some senses of what they see as happening in the Red Sea and kind of use it to extract their own gains from that.
The follow-on question of that is, do you expect to see ad premiums coming down?
Yes.
Trending down now?
Yeah, again, so the question there was, do we expect premiums to downward trend? And we do. In some sense, I think be followed for us to, pretend otherwise. Price is always a lagging indicator of events, so we are seeing downward pressure in the market, but it is the extent to which that is reflective of risk as we see it, and that is the important thing. Is for us as underwriters is to make sure that the risk is priced appropriately to what we see, not just reflective of a binary. Yes, risk goes up, risk goes down. The Houthis have said nothing's happening, therefore price goes down. It's just not that simple, and I think what is really key is that element of lagging indicator in price, and we've got to price in the fact that things can change very, very rapidly in that region. So I think I'm hogging the mic.
Yes. Do you want to add to that, or do you want to take the cyber question? You don't want to take that. You want to hear the answer. So somebody wants to know where exactly is the boundary between cyber warfare and terrorism or war. Do you have an answer, James?
Not the clearest answer. It is a challenge in the market. There is separate cyber insurances which are available. Sometimes coverage can fall between two, but primarily the kind of owner war cover which is provided. Generally, there's a cyber exclusion in that wording. But we're here for physical loss, for the liability, for the seafarers in those difficult areas. And if I may very quickly say as well, there are other challenges in the market. You're probably aware of limpet mine attacks on vessels, Libya, Italy, Baltic Sea. There's plenty of other areas where there are problems, some of which are not listed areas as well.
We give Martin another shot. Yeah, there is another question. Do you have some questions?
Hello, going to.
All right, Martin, go on.
Does this work?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, good. Apologies if I move around the complete or I wanted to revisit the question on mitigating risk. Munro mentioned organizations out there offer generic guidance.
No, Martin, I don't think anything has changed from the last time, so I'll stop you there. It is, you're coming mumbled. So our IT expert, Ruben, for some reason, is not able to stop the. But we'll give you another shot before we finish. But do you have any other question? Yes.
Sorry. Just a quick one. So we saw the Wall Street companies, shipping companies getting targeted because they were listed on Wall Street on the ownership side. Has anything changed in that? Because are they relisting, or is there any movement happening on the corporate structures?
Yeah, so the US exposure is pretty interesting. There was actually a deal brokered, as I recall, by there was actually a deal brokered some time ago between the Omanis and the Houthi on behalf of the US, where it was agreed that the US vessels were not going to be targeted any further. Then there were further developments, and not that long ago, fairly recently, US oil companies were sanctioned actually by the Houthi. Now we have a kind of a ceasefire situation from the Houthi, but in reality we know why they're acting. It's predominantly because of the situation in Gaza. We know that the situation in Gaza as regards to ceasefire is difficult, to say the least. We've probably all seen the news regarding the attack on Hezbollah up in Beirut in the last 24 hours. So it's hard to say what's going to happen at the moment.
Are you seeing any movement in corporate structures then? Are you seeing any movement in corporate structures?
Well, that's a very good question. So we did, probably in the last 12-18 months, we've actually seen that. And the Houthi actually declared that they are, if vessels suddenly change ownership, etc., they're aware that's been done for a certain reason. And they're pretty, sometimes they're pretty sharp. On the other hand, in the earlier stages, they targeted vessels which perhaps were, they didn't fit the profile.
But I think a lot of the corporate structure changes were more to do with USTR rather than war risk.
So, does prior notification save them some pennies rather than last-minute transit notifications? Do you think a prudent owner can save some money knowing that the route has been planned through these war zones where the premium triggers in versus the last day notification? Does that affect premiums?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's very much the job of the insurance broker, who will look to structure a program with a high quality war insurer. They will be asking what the transit activity is likely to be. We will try and structure a program based upon that. In Vessel Protect, we obviously offer a lot of owners annual covers, and then they buy the breaches. But we're pretty flexible on that. We offer a number of owners breach only covers as well.
Somebody asking last minute notifications. How much last minute is last minute? 2 hours? 1 day?
I'd like to say last minute is always before the transit happens. Let's put it this way: it could be very, very close. Insurance is not the top of is not the number one on the agenda for ship owners, but in reality, I think when problems do happen and there are claims, suddenly it becomes number one. So in that regard, we try and develop the relationships with the owners through the brokers and assist them with that process and ask the questions, so they're not faced with that situation where it's slipped down the list, let's say.
Yeah, Munro says the best insurance is after they went to the oh, I forgot to insure, but the vessels passed through. But for compliance, can I have a cover, please? I'll pay you the premium anyways. What happened then? You take the money or just say, okay, I'll give you the piece of paper since you're out of risk now.
You're still online.
Yes, we're still online.
That's the first one.
True, yeah, there you go. Diplomatic. But yeah, so look, Bari, compliance officer here. So if an ex-owner's vessel passes through and they're supposed to take cover, but somebody slips up, the vessel passes through, they still get the cover across, they still take the premium and go.
But you have a policy that actually allows you to do that as well. You're supposed to declare in advance, but you have a policy that says if you forget, you're still covered. Yes.
Is that true? Is that true?
It's a very good point. I mean, I don't want to give away names, but there is a vessel which was hit in July, which had an annual, and it wasn't extended for the breach. For one reason or another, it wasn't a Vessel Protect insured vessel, but the vessel was hit. The vessel sank, and there were crew fatalities on that ship. So, doing things as far in advance as you can, I think, is always advisable.
I've not met one insurer who pays money or claims without getting the premium in first.
If you have the underlying policy of war, and then you pay for the additional breaches, you can have a policy that allows you to pay for the breaches after the event.
Okay, is that true?
Yep.
We've done that.
Peter saying that.
Putting you on the spot here. You sponsored
Yeah,
it.
we are sponsors. I have to answer that. Fine. No, in the annual covers, there is a held covered provision within those policies. I mean, we haven't faced exactly that issue in a claim scenario, but it has happened in this year. And I'll let you read the press as to what happened on that case.
That was as diplomatically answered as it can be. There's somebody who's asking about mines and attacks in the Black Sea, and incidents occur outside the HRA. Who will ensure if basic annual cover and the Black Sea breach has been deferred due to war?
Yeah, so if an owner has an annual policy, they have a worldwide cover where they essentially will pay additional premium for those listed areas, the AWRP premium. So if an incident, a covered claim happens in a non-listed area, then it's covered under the annual policy, assuming that's in place. That's posing more of a problem to the market, particularly at present, as we see the development of limpet mine attacks. The limpet mine attacks have generally been happening to vessels which have called certain Russian ports. There's a significant one in Italy. There's been a large one in Libya. There's been attacks up in the Baltic area, and these claims are some of the larger claims that the market has faced recently.
See, in the port beam there, everyone else is very well behaved and not murmuring at all, which is very, very good. And I think they've not even picked it up. But all said and done, you'll have been absolutely well behaved as a small community. And if there is no more questions, there's just a Slido showing there. I think we should end here with the last closing sentence.
You skipped a couple of questions.
I skipped a couple of. Manoj is asking something. He says, would you consider covering an MSC Antonio incident GPS spoofing under your war terrorism cover, and would you look to exclude it under the cyber exclusions? What a challenge. Come on, Munro, come on. James, what? James, that's it. He push it across.
I think Munro should answer that question, actually. There's a lot of aspects to that particular question. There is, look, in all the war covers, there is a cyber exclusion clause. in there. So I think every claim has to be looked at on its merits, and every single claim is very different. So I can't really give you a firm answer on that, but you know, these claims are likely to be falling somewhere between the conventional war cover and the cyber cover and terrorism cover.
That's the best way you slipped out of that, answering that one, but I think you've done well. Do you require prior notification or approval of planned route? We, I think, answered that. What happens if a vessel is rerouted or forced to discharge at an alternate port because of force majeure? And is the cargo still covered under the deviation if something happens to it?
Well, I mean, that's a very detailed question for a war underwriter. You gave it to me because I used to be a P&I underwriter.
Somebody hasn't had a drink yet. Ask this question.
Look, so we mentioned earlier, so the frequency of war risk claims fortunately is low, but the severity is very high. So we're dealing with a damaged vessel, we're dealing with damaged cargo, and insofar as all that's concerned, the fact it's a war peril, it's the same as a hull and machinery policy, but covering the war risk. So we're talking about ship going to another port, we're talking about cargo coming off, we're talking about taking bunkers off, patching up ships, dealing with crew, and all of these things are covered through the kind of claim process. And yes, it's possible that additional coverage will have to be acquired. At Vessel Protect, we're not only insuring the ship and the liabilities, but we also offer the cargo war risk insurance and the P&I war risk insurance, which are different types of cover. So yeah, after the casualty, there are lots of different considerations to work through, including those.
Should we give Martin a last chance? Yep. He's been quite diligent and patient. I think he deserves another chance. But I think we've run through all the questions. Martin, are you still there? Do you want another go?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, this is better. Carry on.
Okay, so you're extremely quiet here, so please forgive me if I recover old ground, but just to give you sort of my perspective. There's a question about mitigating risk, and then if there is benefits to companies that have got a track record with that company. And Munro alluded to Intertanko and BIMCO and BNP Maritime Security, which give generic guidance. However, each individual transit should be approached on a unique, bespoke basis. So the risk to a ship can change if 1 week it transits and does not fit the Houthi target profile. If a ship within that fleet called it Israel, then that ship is implicated thereafter. And so each voyage should be treated from a unique point of view. Just to cover the Houthi target profile, we saw, first of all, that Israeli ships only were targeted. So here we're talking Zim, Zodiac, Akray, Kars, Eastern Pacific. And then ships which were scheduled to call at Israeli ports were attacked. And then at this point, around January 2024, around 20 ships had been attacked. And so the UK and US conducted the first joint airstrikes in Yemen, and that led to UK and US linked ships being added to the target profile. And then, excuse me, as Israel invaded Rafah, you remember in April, May of 2024, the Houthis evolved the target profile to include any ship of a fleet that had another ship calling at Israel, even if that individual ship never had done or never intended to call at an Israeli port. And so an understanding of the Houthi target profile on that specific day is crucial to any sort of voyage risk assessment for the Red Sea. We also have to consider the Houthi interpretation of ownership and also what is available out there. There are a wealth of databases which contain ownership information, but a lot of them are actually out of date. And if you look at the list of Houthi attacks against ships, a lot have been attacked due to historic ownership. And so that is another consideration to ships that transit in this part of the world. And then when we look at Houthi motive, we always try and look forward. So we know Houthi attacks against shipping and the Houthi threat to shipping in the Red Sea correlates directly with the state of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire. And as it stands at the moment, we're sort of in a ceasefire where there are sub-threshold breaches. And what that means is there's still some activities that are going on, but not really significant enough to warrant a return to full hostilities between Israel and Hamas, and therefore a return to Houthi attacks against shipping. But this scenario is not the only motive for the Houthis. I was with UKMCC and I followed the Houthis for many years, and they've been jostling for power, not only in Yemen, but across the Middle East. And this Israel-Hamas-Palestine situation was a great opportunity for them to flex muscle and project their power. But the Houthis will be looking for another opportunity to ensure they keep their position on the international stage. So just because Israel-Hamas seems to be quieting down, it doesn't necessarily mean that the Houthis will be going away. So I hope that adds a little bit more context to the Red Sea section. James, I think I heard you mention limpet mines. It's extremely quiet. I didn't know if this was ships being attacked after calling at Russian ports, or is this linking to the Strait of Hormuz?
Hi Martin. So, yeah, we were mainly actually talking about vessels that are called Russian ports, because the limpet mine situation is happening away from there. But at the same time, of course, limpet mines have happened previously in some of the UAE ports. So perhaps to mention both.
Do you get that, Martin? Okay, he's muted.
Sorry, I turned my camera off so you didn't see inside my ear as I was trying to hear.
That's all right. Did you get that, what James said?
I heard Russian there, so we will go with that. So
Okay.
There's been around 8 incidents where ships have suffered unexplainable explosions in the Mediterranean or at Russian ports, particularly Baltic ports in Ostluga. Now, not all of these ships are sanctioned, so this is not an attack against the dark fleet or against the sanctioned fleet. This is more an attack against companies which continue to trade at Russian ports. And not all ships were carrying Russian cargo, or sanctioned cargo. A lot was ammonia, which is not sanctioned, but still contributes to Russia's income, which then supports their war against Ukraine. Now, some of these ships have called at Russian ports and then another port before the explosion. So this suggests that limpet mines are not being loaded at Russian ports. Some companies now are being formed in Russia where they conduct a whole survey and say that ships are clean before they leave. But actually, the tractable they bunker the Maltese EEZ, which is a known bunkering location, but it's also a known bunkering location for some of the dark fleet. So this is a great opportunity for limpet mines to be attached. And limpet mines can be detonated remotely, or the fuse can be set on a time delay, exactly the same as we saw with Iran and Strait of Hormuz in 2019. I think that's all I had on mines from ships leaving Russia, unless there are questions there.
So EOS would help a ship owner or underwriter from their intelligence services. If we have to ask EOS to come in to mitigate a premium, would that be something of service that you can do, or is it just intelligence to the underwriters, Martin? You didn't get that? You take that? Okay, Munro.
Just to answer that for Martin, and Martin, are you back with us?
Sorry?
Are you with us?
Hello? I can hear you.
You were asked.
Just-
Do you, is he gone? No. Okay, I'm just going to answer it for him. EOS is a best-in-class security company, okay, and they are a partner of Vessel Protect, and we use them because they're exceptional at what they do. They're impartial. They don't have a vested interest in inflating risk. The security industry is fairly unscrupulous industry at times, especially when you're dealing in the provision of armed guards. In some senses, you might be accused of being incentivized to artificially promote risk. But we partner with EOS because they don't do that. They're not an armed guard provider. They're an impartial intelligence provider. So that's why we use them. They support a vast range of shipping companies and charterers to owners. And of course, they work with us in the underwriting space as well.
Okay, Martin, that was answered on your behalf. I hope you agree. If you heard most of it, that's it. You got a thumbs up from him.
Thanks, Munro.
Well, I must tell you something about our AV and the bravery that we have set up to put this lovely evening outdoors. We had an absolute easy option of going upstairs, which we normally do in summer. This place has absolutely no provision for a screen or any of these. Everything is assembled this afternoon. So I think we owe a round of applause in spite of all the glitches to Ruben, who is a part-time supporter of our tech services at the Nautical Institute. So please give a round of applause. Ruben, that desk has been well worked on today. Never mind the glitches. I think it was a brave, audacious act of putting everything up, mobilizing everything on that desk. And I think we've swung it in spite of all the things. We've got a patient audience. But to close this with all the appreciation given to Ruben, I want to finish off with each one of our panelists ending up with giving one takeaway point. Now, I know the underwriters are never going to say how you're going to save money or premium or things like that, but I'm sure Chris has some ideas on that. But James and Munro would definitely want to give you some tips to go home with. But Chris, pass the mic around. Do you want to tell our lovely audience how they can save money? Any take-home points?
Don't save money, save lives.
Well, I'm not going to answer the question how to save money. Might not surprise you.
Your bonuses will be compromised.
Yeah, no, it's fair to say. I mean, people who are placing war and seeing the war market regularly will know that the insurance market goes through hard markets and soft markets, and premiums will change based upon the amount of competition in the market and the capital coming into the insurance market. One of the things we have seen, and it is a challenge to the war market right now, is there's a lot of new capital which has come into the space. A number of new insurers, some who are very small in war, some new facilities. We were a new facility as Vessel Protect 5.5 years ago. We've been fantastically supported. We're now, one of the largest kind of war facilities in the market. We're fortunate. We've paid some significant claims, but we're fortunate still to have kind of good results, and we're there to support the owners, and we can do. We've got amazing backers in terms of our Lloyd's security, which stands behind us. I think the main thing for us here is it's just great to see a mixture of owners, managers, and everybody in the industry. And if there's one thing I think reminds us of is we see the problems in the industry from our side, but we also, but being in this environment, we see it from owners, from everybody else's side as well. So I think we all have kind of challenges in this space. The world is sadly is a difficult place right now. Working together and receiving your feedback is fantastic, and grateful for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for sponsoring this evening. Munro, do you have something to end with? Takeaway.
Yeah, no, I think I'll just kind of echo what Chris said. I think, for me, it's the wrong question. The question is always, how do we save lives? And I think the human component is something that's always, secondary in this industry, especially when we come together to discuss things like insurance. It is the human element that is seldom discussed up front and central. So particularly pertinent for this evening, particularly pertinent for the Nautical Institute, and of course hosting here at the Seafarers Club, lest we forget the mariners who are certainly at the front end of this.
I think that was an apt evening comment for our Nautical, because the heart of it, we all come together to give our time for what we have seen out at sea, and we go on board even now and see a lot of trouble, a lot of heart pain, and a lot of stories that we hear from people. So a very, very welcomed end to sparing a thought for the seafarers. But at the end of it, it is they who get us the food on the table. Had they not braved these war areas and traded their safety for a little bonus or a little extra that they get, for whatever reasons they have, we wouldn't be talking about all this. So there are still ships, there are still those brave seafarers who are still transiting those waters, and there are still brave asset owners who are taking their vessels and their cargoes through these waters for exchange of extra revenue. But that's what makes the world go round. There are those risk takers and there are those who would say, I won't go there. But on this lovely note, and with a spare of thought to the seafarers, I would also say that I'm duty bound for the venue that we are at, the Seafarers Club. We're open to membership, and amongst us, potentially everyone who's sitting here and listening is a potential member of this club. It's not expensive. I have encouraged enough of my friends to sign up as members. So if you are a seafarer and haven't yet signed up as a member, please do pick up a form. Do we have a form for membership? And I think we should all contribute, just not by coming here for a lovely evening like this, but also commit for membership. It's not a lot, it's less than 2,000 dirhams a whole year. So please pick up the form, and I will ensure within the next couple of days you get your membership card, and they're very efficient. There was a time when they've actually turned around the card on the same day. So there are some membership forms. Please sign up to the Seafarers Club. We would like you to all be members. But thank you for coming in. We have ended up in a lovely 40-minute as we agreed. 45 minutes, I think. 45 minutes as we agreed. We thought we would stretch on for an hour, but there were no intelligent questions left anymore on the Slido. So we could have kept on talking about it, but thank you very much. On that lovely note, the barbecue is fired. There are more drinks. Thank you to Vessel Protect, James. Munro, thank you very much for coming all the way from UK. This was planned 4 months in advance. They were talking to us about sponsoring a Nautical Institute event, and I said, if you all have thought about it that long, an AGM would be then apt this year. Chris, being our events lead, has put this lovely evening together. He's worked so hard for putting all this and planning this evening for months together, and thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you everyone for coming. Enjoy the food and drink.
Hard work for Chris, right? Some good elbow exercise. Oh yeah.